The siege of Suiyang took place from January to October 757. For 8 months and 2 weeks, the rebel Yan army fought to gain control of the city from the loyalist Tang army. Suiyang was a strategic point on the route from capitals to the southeastern coast. The battle was fierce, with both sides deploying tricky tactics. For instance, the Tang army shot weeds at the Yan army instead of arrows. The Yan army rejoiced, believing the Tangs to be out of arrows. The Yans let their guard down. The Tang shot volleys after volleys of arrows, sending the Yan army into retreat. However, the Yan army returned with 20,000 fresh soldiers. By July, the Tang forces were out of food. By August, all of the insects, animals, and vegetation in the area had been eaten. According to ancient historians, the city's residents traded their children for dead bodies so they could eat. The Tang general, Zhang Shun, killed his concubine in front of his soldiers and ordered them to eat her. The army then ate the city's horses, followed by its women, old men, and then young men. When the city finally fell, only 400 people remained. It is estimated that 20,000 to 30,000 civilians were eaten. The First Crusade was the first of a series of religious wars initiated by the Latin Church. They intended to recover the Holy Land from Islamic rule. The war found its way to Ma'arat an-Numan in November 1098, when the siege of Ma'ara began. The siege lasted for less than 2 weeks, until the Crusaders secured a victory. Crusaders began the siege by surrounding the city. Citizens were not concerned. A Crusader attack earlier that year was successfully defended. This time, things were different. The Crusaders only had a few supplies, and winter was coming. They could not waste much time. The Crusaders built a siege tower that allowed them to breach the walls on one side of the city. At the same time, a group climbed undefended walls on the other side of the city. The tactic worked. The Muslims retreated deep into the city, but the Crusaders had to ensure victory before the fight dragged on. They rushed into the city and plundered it. Ma'arat was not a rich city. As December went on, supplies dwindled. Food became scarce. Some of the Crusaders began to feed on the dead Muslim corpses. According to some accounts, adults were boiled in cooking pots. Children were impaled on spits and grilled. Even dogs were placed on the Crusaders' menu. It's unknown how many bodies were eaten. The Jamestown settlement in the colony of Virginia was the first permanent English settlement in the Americas. The starving time was a period of starvation the settlers endured during the winter of 1609 to 1610. The colonists first arrived in the area in 1607. They did not plan on growing all of their food. Instead, they relied on trading with the local Powhatan between the arrivals of supply ships. However, relations with the Powhatan population soon soured, escalating into armed conflicts, kidnappings, and killings. The settlers could not rely on the natives for help. Their plans changed. A lack of potable water and a dry rain season devastated their agriculture. A supply fleet was impacted by a hurricane, sending them months behind schedule and without supplies. Although the Powhatan still traded the settlers for food, the settlers did not have much to offer. Every supply drop would bring more people than supplies. Winter came, and with it, tragedy. The settlers burned their houses to keep warm, and they resorted to other, rather less holy measures to survive. Evidence suggests that the Jamestown settlers ate cats, dogs, horses, and rats if they could find them. In 2013, forensic experts found that the remains of a teenage girl showed marks that are consistent with butchering meat. On June 7, 1610, the survivors boarded ships, abandoned the colony site, and sailed away from the starving time, the scene of their greatest defeat.